bring in Joel Klatt, Fox Sports college football analyst, and he's got Michigan and Wisconsin. Joel, thanks for joining us. Let me start with Wisconsin. Give me a scenario where if Wisconsin runs the table, they don't make the Final Four.
Oh, gosh. That's first of all, I don't think that will happen. But I think that the wild chance that there's just an epic ACC championship game and Miami loses late, maybe a field goal late, maybe an overtime game, and everyone is so enthralled with Clemson and Miami. And let's say that, Penn State for some reason gets into the Big Ten championship game, and that championship game is less than thrilling. And then all of a sudden the four teams that are sitting in the top four right now would just kind of remain in the top four. If Oklahoma and Alabama run the table, I guess that would be your scenario. But I think it would have to be some sort of epic ACC championship game where people think even Miami with a loss deserves to be in the top four.
What are the chances Michigan wins this game?
I give them probably a better chance than even Vegas does. I know it's like 7.5 or something along those lines. The thing that I get worried about for each team in this game, Dan, is that each defense is going to take away the run, at least for some portions of the game. So then it becomes which passing game is ready to take over the game. And I don't know if either of these are. And the only thing that Michigan's got going for it, even though they've got a young quarterback who's not proven, he doesn't turn the ball over. He's very safe with the football. And Hornibrook is not. He turns it over, and he'll put it up there. And last week, the only points that Iowa scored were the 14 on pick sixes. So I think that is the scenario where Michigan can potentially not only stay close, but even come in here and upset Wisconsin and Camp Randall.
Give me your top four and your rationale for ranking those top four.
Yeah, in this day and age, right, like you've got to look at the whole resume, at least in my estimation. So when I was ranking my top four this week, I put Oklahoma at number one, and it's a pretty simple rationale. I think that if you beat great teams, that you are a great team, and they have 3 top 15 wins. That's more than the rest of the top 5 combined. All those teams are still currently in the top 15, which I think is more important than what Clemson was able to do when they beat 3 top 15 teams early in the season that are, some of them no longer ranked like Virginia Tech. By the way, they won all those games, Dan, by 10 points or more. They've got the number one offense in the country, the best player in the country, and 2 of them were on the road. So they're the number one team in the country for me. Alabama goes at number 2. I've got Miami at 3 and then Wisconsin at 4. The thing that I look at with Clemson is they cannot throw the ball. Kelly Bryant's been given kind of a pass by this playoff committee, and in reality, he's only thrown for 200 or more yards twice in the last 7 games, and that's not going to cut it coming down the stretch. So I think they're actually in some trouble when they meet Miami in that championship game.
You got USC and UCLA, and normally this is an interesting game, competitive game. It might be the last time Jim Mora gets to face USC as the head coach of UCLA. But you also have Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen. We've cooled off a little bit on these two. But if I said who will go higher in the draft with Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen, who would you take?
I would take Sam Darnold, and I think most of the NFL guys that I've talked to would echo those sentiments. His struggles have been overblown. You and I both know that when someone comes in with all the hype that Darnold does, even Andrew Luck came into his last season with that type of hype, it's very difficult to live up to that. And so he turned the ball over a few times early in the season. Yes, certainly those were bad turnovers, but if you look at his whole body of work, Dan, it's actually been pretty outstanding. His rating against ranked opponents this year is 153. That's 3rd in the country behind only Baker Mayfield and McKenzie Milton from UCF. Meanwhile, Rosen, when healthy, he's certainly one of the best players out there. But I will tell you this. Don't be shocked if Josh Rosen stays at UCLA. I don't know if this is the first time you've heard this or not, but I wouldn't be shocked if both of these players are back, but in particular Rosen. Rosen's an interesting one where you may have an alliance being built. He and Jim Mora are very close. And there may be an alliance being built where, they're kind of making it a package deal where if Jim stays, Josh will stay as well. And if Jim goes, then Josh will go. So that UCLA situation is very interesting. I think that he has seen the writing on the wall with some of the sentiment in the NFL, and he knows he's got to curb some of those, I guess rumors out there about maybe his attitude and love of the game. Now, I think he loves the game. I think he's a great player. But I think Josh Rosen may be back at UCLA a year from now.
That's the first I've heard of that. We talked about Sam Darnold is possibly going back as well. We're talking to Joel Klatt from Fox Sports. He's got Wisconsin, Michigan coming up this weekend. But I talked to Rick Neuheisel, and Neuheisel knows quarterbacking. And he said if he had the number one pick or he needed a quarterback, the one quarterback he's taking is Baker Mayfield. How did Mayfield go from, and he's been around, we've seen him, and normally when you stay too long, we devalue you. He's increased his value here. How did that happen?
Well, he got better every year, which is, that's one way to do it, right? It's like you show substantial growth. And I'm with you. And I don't know if I would take him as the first quarterback, but, boy, it would be close. And there's one thing that you're seeing in the National Football League right now, which is young quarterbacks that had success both as leaders and winners in the college game that are going in and having a lot of success in the National Football League. One is the schematics aren't necessarily changing, but then you don't have to be under center quite as much as you used to be. I mean, every team in the National Football League is in the shotgun close to 70% of the time, 75% of the time. So the transition is not quite what it was, let's say, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Mayfield also has this innate ability to make throws. And that's one thing that gets lost because everyone thinks it's a spread system, and that's why the numbers are so gaudy. But when you watch him play, he's got terrific arm talent. He drives the football down the field. He throws with great touch. He can layer the ball over the linebackers in front of the safeties. And his teammates love playing for him. And I got to tell you, I don't think that there is a more fun player to watch in college football right now than number 6 for the Oklahoma Sooners.
And what is always struck me as strange and counterintuitive is that the NFL wants the quarterback to adjust to the NFL style when the NFL borrows more from college than the other way around. That are we seeing pro teams now shift a little bit more back to college? So the transition, like Carson Wentz or Jared Goff or Deshaun Watson, it's an easier transition for these kids to be able to play in a style that they're comfortable with.
No question about it. And there's some things that you're never going to be able to copy. Namely, I think two things that will always maintain, some difference between the two games is the space that wide hash marks create in the college game is just not afforded to you in the National Football League. So you don't have the space to run the type of schematics that you do at the college level. And then two is the 53-man roster. That just doesn't allow you to play with the tempo that the college teams play with because the attrition is just too great. So those two things are always going to put some barriers on copying exactly what a college team does and taking it to the National Football League. But I will say you're exactly right. When you're looking at the concepts that are being run, when you're looking at the number of snaps in the shotgun, when you're looking at the way that they are teaching, not only teaching, but then also calling the plays on the football field, it's a lot different than it used to be. It used to be so much verbiage, and guys in the college game that hadn't been in a huddle really struggled with that. Well, now in the NFL, they're adopting a lot of those single-word concepts that tell everyone what they're doing, and I think that's a big difference. And interestingly enough, Dan, the team that really brought that to the NFL, it wasn't teams trying to find a quarterback. It was the Patriots.
Yeah.
The Patriots are the ones that started doing it, and so everyone said, oh, well, if they can do it, we can do it too. And oh, by the way, we've got some quarterbacks that are young that can execute what they're doing.
Yeah, when Belichick goes to visit Mike Leach, that tells you about Mike Leach and what they were doing at Texas Tech a long, long time ago. And then Belichick adopted that system, or at least a hybrid of that, in New England. I'll leave you with this. The sneaky game this weekend, aside from the one you have, of course, with Fox on Wisconsin, Michigan, is?
Professional teams. I would say Texas Tech, TCU. That's the interesting one for me because TCU controls their own destiny. But, Dan, Texas Tech is top 10 in the country throwing the ball with Nick Shimanek, a fifth-year senior at quarterback. Cliff Kingsbury's got them playing much better than they have in the last few years, in particular on defense. And TCU just lost a really emotional game to Oklahoma a week ago, and their best player on offense, Darius Anderson. That is a sneaky game that could allow Oklahoma State to get back into that Big 12 championship game, which is the last thing that the Oklahoma Sooners want. That's the one matchup they desperately want to avoid in Dallas. So that game, Texas Tech and TCU, is a big one.
Great stuff, Joel. Tell Gus we said hello, and thanks for allowing us to catch up with you.
You got it, man. Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun.
That's Joel Klatt, Fox Sports. It's Michigan and Wisconsin coming up this weekend on Fox.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.